Hello friends and greetings for the day. Welcome back to another tutorial on ISTQB Advanced Level Test Management Certification. We are in chapter 2 talking about managing the product and continuing with our same segment, that is 2.3, that is defect management. And today we shall be jumping on to the next subsegment, that is 2.3.2, Cross Functional Defect Management. And here we'll be trying to understand how cross-functional teams works together to manage a defect, and it's not just the responsibility of the testing team. Well, to get started and set up the context, it's very important to understand that defect management is not only the responsibility of testing team. That means not just the testers who are responsible to report a defect. A defect can be reported anywhere in the life cycle and by anyone. That means designers, developers, and any other stakeholders are equally responsible to report a defect if they find one in the product. And this collectively helps us to improve the overall quality and use multiple wisdom and technical competencies to add value to overall defect management in the life cycle. However, even in the case when the testers are someone who are reporting the defect, it's not just them alone who make a conclusive decision that should we work on the defect or not. And that is where the discussion starts to happen on what is cross-functional defect management. That means every single stakeholder has a contribution to make when it comes to defect management. And this part is going to discuss more in detail about that. So let's get started. So right here, if you see, when we talk about an organization, the overall defect management process and the defect management tool, a cross-functional team is generally responsible for managing the defects for a given project. This team sometimes being called as defect management committee or a triage committee, and they basically sit down together to discuss on the defects, help them to select whether to work on these defects or not, also to determine the prioritization of the defects together, and then also make decisions if to work on this defect or not. So in simple words, when a defect is reported on daily basis, the next day morning, the triage committee or the defect management committee will discuss or get on a call and try to filter out all the defects which are open as of today and try to identify the prioritization of it based on discussions. Now here the committee or the defect management committee, what we mean by is collection of project manager, the developers, the designers, and the testers. Now testers may have their own priorities to work on defects. Developers may have their own consequences to fix an issue at this point of time. So we'll just take collectively all the inputs and then decide a common prioritization which is acceptable by the whole committee. And this committee would be again collective members of all the domains and all the stakeholders, and then we conclude on a common decision. And based on that decision, the team will work for the whole day. Then again, the next day morning, the same kind of thing will happen. Now again, it depends on how frequently you're getting a defect. The frequency of call would be defined. You may have weekly calls, you may have daily calls, you may have alternate day calls. But yes, this call would be very much beneficial to determine which defects to work upon and which to not. And if you're working, what is the prioritization of that? But again, it's just not the developer who will be defining the priority. We'll sit down together to discuss what is more important to work upon. So that's the role of the defect management committee. And here the anomalies are discovered and entered into the defect management tool. Then the committee determines whether each defect report represents a valid defect. If it is valid, should we fix it? So all that information is right here. Otherwise, it will be rejected or deferred, and we'll just mark them accordingly. Now, if the defect is to be fixed, the team should establish the priority of fixing the defect relative to other tasks. The test manager and test team may be consulted regarding the relative importance of the defect and should provide the available objective information. And that pretty much clarifies what we were just discussing a moment back, that what the defect committee is all about and why it should be a collective decision making about managing a defect. Because sometimes it happens in some of the organization because a tester wants something on highest priority, but the developers may have their own way of thinking on it, or they may have own priorities to deal with it, and they may delay the defect. And for that, I might be getting blocked. So instead of conflicting and then one-to-one collaboration, we try to build this committee, which would make more sense. And I can get instant management approval because managers are also present. So that is where we wanted to understand how the cross-functional management would help. Also to add here some of the common ethics which we follow. includes on a very large project, the appointment of the full-time defect manager may be justified by the effort needed to prepare for and to follow up on the decisions made by the defect management committee meetings, at least during those SDLC phases when testing is at its most intensive. In other situations, the several large projects may share a defect manager also. So we just giving you the significance of the defect manager or someone who is going to lead this particular call, and you may certainly appoint one of the dedicated person to do this job. But what I'm trying to say that when the time comes in the SDLC where testing team is highly occupied, we certainly may have lot of work to be done on the decision making of the defect, and that is where it is important for us to understand. So sometime one person can be dedicated to work on these, on follow up, and see that the things are working after the meeting is defined with the priorities and the conclusions. And later, of course, the team can continue working on that. But most often, if you see in the real world, we'll have the same people from the same project members who will be making this decision, and maybe the manager would be one who will be playing the role of defect manager and following up whether the team is sticking to the schedule and the decisions made during the discussion. Uh, Also, to add, a defect management tool should never be used as a substitute to good communication, nor should be a defect management committee should be used as a substitute for effective use of good communication or defect management tool. In simple words, all we are trying to say here is that tool has its own significance, and collaboration and communication has its own set of rules and significances. So it's not necessary that if you're using a very good defect management tool, it's not required to collaborate. It's not required to discuss on the defects. So discussion is one part of it, and having a tool to manage the data is another part of it. So a good defect management tool should never be seen as a substitute to the communication among the team member to make such decisions. Communication skills or communication, adequate tool support, a well-defined defect workflow, and engaging committee is all necessary part of the overall efficient defect management. And that's not something optional, and that's not something what team can just look forward to. And everything has to be a part of it, which plays a very vital role. So put together, cross-functional defect management was all about that every stakeholder has something to contribute in making our defect management more successful and effective. Alone testers may fight for it, but may not get what they really want. So everyone should contribute their bit to make sure that we are helping each other and supporting each other to get the job done well ahead of time, or maybe within the time which we are given with. So that's pretty much what we had from this particular topic. Should you have anything else, feel free to comment below. I'm always there to address your queries and answer them well. Till then, keep learning, keep exploring, keep understanding the context. Thanks for watching the video, team, and happy learning.